Ladies and gentlemen, a very good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever it is that you're watching us from, and welcome to another episode of Through My African Eye, where as usual every Saturday we usually tell extraordinary stories of people who have existed in this world at one point and did extraordinary things to the point their lifestyle and the life they live should always be a history lesson to us and to the many generations that comes after them. And today is no exception. We are going to talk about a gentleman whom, in the best term I can actually describe him in brief, I can actually call him a poor millionaire. Based on the life that he lived in his life, the things that he went through, I have never come across one single individual whom you will love to hate, hate to love, and sympathize with, and empathize and do everything at the same time. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the story after the break. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Through My Kenyan Eye. And if you're new to this channel, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button below and hit the notification button to be getting notification as and when we release our next videos. Now the year is 1890. In Henryville, Indiana, a bouncing baby boy is born to two loving parents who are peasant farmers. The baby is named Harland Sanders. The dad dies 5 years into his childhood, and the mother remarries to a man who is not even really concerned about fathering stepchildren. So the harsh conditions of his new father and his new surrounding that he's staying in makes Harland actually run away from home at the age of 12 to go and maneuver into the world to try and become a man. And as fate would have it, there has never been one single person in the entire lifetime that I've come across or met his story anywhere in the journals of history that has been very unfortunate as this guy that you're about to speak about now. Harland Sanders, at 12 years of age, started his first job. He did all sort of jobs where he became a street car conductor, he ventured into sales insurance, he became the salesman, he tried tire sales, he tried being a railway fireman, he tried being a secretary, he tried being a lawyer, which he taught even himself through reading mails. He tried so many things, including being a midwife at his age. But ladies and gentlemen, none of them lived to fruition. Now, fast forward. The year is 1908. At a tender age of 18 years, he falls in love and marries his first wife, a lady by the name Josephine King, whom they would later be blessed with 3 children, Margaret, Harland Jr., and Mildred. And they stayed happily together for a total period of around 39 years, almost 40 years into marriage. But sooner or later, that marriage had come to an end. They lost their son, Harland Jr., at a tender age of 20 years due to complication of tonsillitis, operation complication, and they never got back into being what they used to be after the death of their son. So they separate. And at this point, he actually marries a second wife, a lady by the name Claudia Ledington, whom they would stay together up to the point of his death. Altogether, they stayed together for a period of around 31 years. At this point, Mr. Harland was actually working as a gas station operator, and it was at this point where, after trying and failing so many times in his life in all the other ventures he tried to do, an idea came to him, and it is that idea that actually made him to become famous and great to a point to date. He's a household name. And what did he do? He started a fast food business where he would prepare food and sell to the people who would come to fuel at his station as a takeaway. And it so happened that he was so good at it to a point the station started drawing customers purely based on the fact that they wanted to have a taste of his food that he was actually preparing to his best. This went on and on up to a point that he literally had to extend the kitchen that he was having behind the gas station to actually host around 140 people. because the demand for his food was far and wide. Actually, at this point, the station is actually located in a town called Kentucky. As fate would have it, the restaurant grew to become one of the best restaurants within Kentucky. And one of the reasons was that it was actually located at a road junction. But even at this point, when Mr. Harland had actually gotten himself into an idea of doing something that would help him beyond age 60, it so happened that his misfortunes actually literally still followed him. His reputation and his food and his hotel actually grew to a point everybody was literally coming to have a taste at Harland's food. But one unfortunate thing that still followed him at this point, when he was actually beyond 60 years and had actually thought that all the other years that he has been unfortunate in all the other things he has done, finally had gotten away out of his misery, was that at this point there was a new interstate road that was actually being developed far away from his place, which would later take traffic or people from the road junction that his hotel was located at to the new road. And at that point, things became so tough, to a point that Mr. Harland himself had actually to auction his property because business was at a tail end. He actually left everything and was literally surviving on government aid that was being given, which was a paycheck of around $104 a month. Life was so tough to a point that Mr. Harland himself had actually to start staying in his own car. He was sleeping in his car, literally, because he could not even afford to stay in a modern or any civilized house that he could afford. You get to see that? But all in all, life gave him a second chance. He had an idea that was proposed to him by a young lawyer of 29 years who came and told him that why don't we franchise this business of yours? You are good at what you're doing, even though there have been some hiccups here and there which are beyond your control. Why don't we franchise this business so that it actually outlives you, it grows into other cities, and it will be a good deal. So Mr. Harland thought about it, Mr. Harland, and was like, why not? So what did he do? He literally carried his cooking utensils in his car, the pressure cooker that he used to prepare his best meals with, the other paraphernalias including the ingredients he used to use, and walked from one estate, from one town to another, from one hotel to another, trying to sell the franchise idea. And they came to an agreement that for every chicken that would be sold using his recipe and his style, he would actually get 4 cents for every order that was made on a chicken that was prepared on his criteria. And ladies and gentlemen, as fate would have it, the franchise business really grew huge, to a point it penetrated the whole of the United States and went all the way to the UK. It was in Canada. It was doing so well, including all the way in Japan. But one unfortunate thing is, Mr. Harland was literally duped into selling his property by the very lawyer who came and advised him to start a franchise business for a mere $2 million. Having been lied to that he was going to maintain his status as the brand ambassador, the food were going to be cooked based on his own recipes, and he would be the face behind the whole franchise business that was started at that time. So he blindly agreed, which to some extent I would like to blame it on his lack of academics. It will be worth noting, as I take you back a little bit, that actually this gentleman, while he was 12 years old, in the 7th grade, literally dropped out of school simply because he had a problem with maths, particularly algebraic equations. So because of one topic within the math syllabus of algebra, the young man decided to drop out of school in the 7th grade and started venturing to become a man. In the same spirit, he lied his way into the US Army at the tender age of 16 to 15, only to be dropped 6 months later, honorary. Probably they discovered that he was not old enough to be in the army. Another story for another day. Fast forward, Now he's being lied to because he's not that intellectually smart into selling his property that he had literally toiled sleeping in his car and walking to other hotel owners, persuading them to buy his idea of preparing the chicken in his own way, and he's selling it away for a mere $2 million. And he thought it was a good deal, even though he was a bit reluctant at first to sell it. But the fact that he sold it later meant that he took the money. So the owners would later come, make the business prosperous, open more franchise, extend their dominance in other countries like Asia, Africa, everywhere in the whole world. To a point that to date, the business that Mr. Harland Sanders began, which was famously known back then as Kentucky Fries, KFC, which all of us actually to date, we always long to go to have a bite of the KFC, actually the Kentucky Fried Chicken. That business later on started changing the parameters that they engaged him on, and he ended up being a bitter man, to a point that constantly he would criticize the management, he would criticize the kind of food that they were preparing, he would criticize everything regarding the recipes because he made the recipes himself. But these guys were changing, they were no longer using his recipes. And to him, that was a breach of contract. So in every interview, he would go to represent the brand in television interviews, radios, and all the other platforms that used to exist at the time. He would not shy away from expressing his disbelief and his dissatisfaction at the way the franchises were being run. Until to one point, he was actually sued by the management of the company that he actually founded himself. And he was supposed to pay a fine to the tune of almost $120 million. Something that somehow, somewhere, he ended up not paying. Did you get to see that? One other thing that he did, which was phenomenal, having felt that his opinions were no longer being valid in this company at a very old age. Actually, by that time he was over 80 years old. He actually decided that if these guys cannot buy my ideas of how these franchise businesses are supposed to be run, the recipes they're supposed to cook, then why don't I start my own other franchise or my own other entity that I will actually be preparing my meals my own way. Ladies and gentlemen, that is how this business by the name Claudia Cafe, which still exists to date, was actually born. And because of the reason that he was on contract with the main franchise, the franchise again sued him for having opened a competitive business, yet he's on contract with the main one. And he had no otherwise than to sell this property again. But it still exists to date. It will be worth noting that it was named after his current wife, who was actually Claudia Harland now. And his frustrations continued and continued up to a point that he died later on at the age of 90 due to acute leukemia. He was buried, and by the time of his death, it was actually estimated that the amount of wealth that he had within himself was only a mere $3.5 million. But his brainchild, the franchise that he had left behind, that he had sold out, was actually estimated by the time of his death to actually be pocketing a whole $6 billion annually. Now, ladies and gentlemen, do you see why I decided to call Mr. Sanders, or who will later on be famously known as Colonel Sanders, as a poor millionaire? Because How do you die having a net worth of $3.5 million? Yet your brainchild, which was a franchise you started, your own, your sweat, your image is actually the poster. You are the logo of the company. All their packaging items, it is your face that is there. It is you who did commercials. It is you who went far and beyond to make sure that it is whatever it is that it is today. You die at the age of 90, having only accumulated a net worth of $3.5 million, but leaving behind an empire that is not directly attached to you, that per year pockets are whooping $6 billion. It's very disturbing. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the life of Colonel Sanders. Thank you and welcome.